Hi, I want to talk to you a little about hidden suggestions in hidden meditation. Meditation and hypnosis are very similar in that they both involve trance. Meditation in the form of self-actuated introspection, and hypnosis with the assistance of a hypnotist to guide you into trance. But did you know there are actually hundreds of other ways you can also go into trance? I guess to start with, we need to understand what a trance is. Wikipedia describes it as an abnormal state of wakefulness in which a person is not self-aware and is either altogether unresponsive to external stimuli but nevertheless capable of pursuing or realizing an aim, or is selectively responsive in following the directions of the person, if any, who has induced the trance. Trance states may occur involuntary and unbidden, and trance may be associated with hypnosis, meditation, magic, flow, and prayer. Which is quite the mouthful, isn't it? Trance can, however, be summed up significantly more succinctly. In its simplest form, trance is being awake with a singularly fixated focus or attention, meaning you are so focused on one thing that everything else seems to melt away from your awareness. That point of focus can be almost anything, such as your breath, which is common with meditation, or a person's voice, like a hypnotist. It can also be when you go deep into your own mind and focus on a single thought or idea. Once in a trance-like state, by whatever means it took to get there, our unconscious mind is susceptible to any suggestions that it receives. This is because the critical factor, commonly referred to as the gatekeeper, is preoccupied with what it is focused on consciously. The critical factor is the analytical part of the mind that sorts out all the useful information from the not before allowing it to enter the unconscious mind. The perfect way to demonstrate this is to talk with a young child before their critical factor is established, usually before the age of around 7. If you say to them excitedly, "There's a friendly pink dragon with fluffy ears and a stripy tail out in the garden," there's a good chance they're going to run to the window to see it. If you said the same thing to someone over the age of around 11, unless they have some kind of mental deficiencies, they're probably just going to laugh at you and say bullshit. This is because their well-established critical factor knows that dragons don't exist in our modern world, especially pink ones with fluffy ears and stripy tails. However, if the critical factor is offline for any reason, you may not only believe in dragons, but you could gain an emotional attachment to them as well. I have to admit, I cried at the end of the old movie, Dragonheart. Now, if we sit down to meditate and feed our unconscious mind positive affirmations, this can be a great thing and reflect these positive suggestions into our awakened reality. Likewise, if we go to see a hypnotist and while in trance they feed our unconscious mind with helpful suggestions for a better life, this can be a great thing too. In fact, positive suggestions while in a hypnotic trance can help people to lose weight or stop smoking or improve their life in any number of ways. Unfortunately though, just how positive suggestions while in a trance can help us, negative suggestions can affect us also and be incredibly detrimental to our mental health, well-being, and our daily lives. But why would anyone feed themselves negative suggestions, I hear you ask? Well, consciously, I don't think any of us would. But that is determined by whether or not we know we are in a trance or not. If somehow we've entered a trance-like state without being aware of it, any negative suggestions would easily creep into the unconscious mind. You'd think that surely we would know when we're entering a trance-like state, but the fact remains all of us do so every day, and rarely do we recognize it. Remember, all it takes to induce a trance is a fixated singular focus or attention. Now, if you look back over your life over the last few days, how many times did your attention fit that criteria? At first, we may be inclined to think not that many at all. However, allow me to give you a few examples. Have you ever driven to work or to some place that you go to regularly and completely zoned out on the journey, only to arrive on autopilot, not remembering how the trip went at all? Have you ever sat down and watched TV or a movie and got so caught up in the story that everything else in your world just disappeared until those end credits rolled? And what about looking at social media on your phone and suddenly realizing that a huge amount of time has passed rather than the few minutes that it felt like? These are all examples of everyday trance that all of us go into all of the time. Another good one is getting caught up in our own thoughts, especially if we're reliving bad experiences that may have happened to us. Allow me to ask you this question. What were the suggestions and messages that were being fed into your unconscious mind while you were in these trance-like states? Did you maybe have commercial radio playing in the car, filling your unconscious mind with ads? If so, what were the messages in the ads? How were they selling their products and services? Were they eating away at your self-worth so that you would seek happiness and fulfillment in their offerings? The same goes for TV and social media. In fact, these technologies are designed this way. Anyone who has worked in advertising knows that the most beneficial placement for an ad is the very first ad in the middle of a show. Why? Because we are so caught up in the storyline and the characters that when that first ad plays, it goes straight into our unconscious mind before we have a chance to block it out with our gatekeeper. Just imagine for a moment, you're watching your favorite TV show and the last 3 episodes have been building up to this one moment. She walks in with her flowing dress. It's blood red, heart beating fast, in anticipation as they're about to pick the new queen. And boom, do you have symptoms of heartburn? If you didn't, you probably do now. One of the reasons why these trances are hidden is because it doesn't feel like you're singularly focused at the time. When you're scouring social media, it seems like your attention is on many different things as all of the different pictures and stories and videos scroll before you. However, your attention is really only focused on one thing, the screen in front of you. The same can be said for television. It doesn't matter how many action scenes, explosions, red muscle cars screeching away from the queen alien that's invading the city, because let's face it, red always goes faster. Sub-stories, characters and plotline twists and on. It doesn't matter what you are presented with. Your focus still remains singularly on the screen. Now, I'm not suggesting that you go and turn off all of this stuff. That's just not realistic in our modern world. What I am suggesting is that you become aware of all of those times that you're going into trance. Become aware of the messages that are being presented to you at all times and in all of their forms. When you become aware of these things happening, they are less likely to have an effect on you. Awareness will ensure that the gatekeeper to your unconscious mind remains vigilant to all the subversive messages it may be presented with. And how do you become aware of going into these hidden trances? Simply by becoming aware of them. The more times you become aware, the more you'll be able to become aware. At first, it may be the big stuff like noticing that you're zoning out in the car. And then, over time, you'll train your mind to become aware of the smaller stuff too. Like everything, this is a skill to be learned and practiced over time to get good at it. Now wake up and have an awesome day.